Mercenary Park is a bit of an odd map. It was released as part of the Jungle Inferno update back in 2017, and it came out to mixed to negative opinions of it. The main reason for this is mainly due to how the map was designed. The way that this map works is that it's a control points map. To be more specific, an attack and defense map, where one team defends the control points and the other tries to capture the control points. Red is defense and blue is offense. This map has an indoor section with tight corridors and a slightly more open outdoor section, with the map in total having 3 different control points for each team to either capture or defend based on their color. Now as for teams, red seems to have a bit more of an advantage over blue on this map because of choke points. You know, the things Valve seem to be ever so fond of in some of their other maps.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Choke points are defined as a point of congestion or blockage, and in terms of an FPS game, that means that there are only 1 or 2 narrow points that your players can go through to get to the objective of the map. You may be asking yourself, now why is this a bad thing? Well, for starters, it hurts the design of the map overall if there are only 1 or 2 ways to get to an objective, because it can lead to situations where one team just camps a certain section of the map for the entire round. And it's not limited to the defending team either. For example, if an NG decides to place a sentry in one of the many nooks and crannies that are located throughout the map that is in the way back of the control point, it can be quite problematic to deal with. On other maps where snipers can take potshots at the sentries, they don't pose as much of a problem to your team, but here it's different due to the corridors. For you see, classes who rely on splash damage to be as effective as possible in most cases, like the Demo and Soldier, like to spam their rockets and explosives quite a lot. This, combined with the lack of mobility, really hurts Sniper a lot, due to him not being able to find a good place to snipe from, which prevents him from taking out the sentry, and also limits the player's options to either A, take out the sentry and loosen up the choke point with a spy, or B, build as many Ubers as possible and clear out the blockage using that. Another thing that these tight corridors tend to do is turn the game into a spam fest to see who can run out of ammo first, or to see who can get an Uber going first. And even with an Uber, you might not make much progress due to knockback. Keep in mind that you only have 10 seconds of invincibility with each Uber. So basically it's a tug-of-war to see who can spam more projectiles or pop more Ubers. And that's just not very fun because it can draw out games for a good 30 minutes to an hour, or even more if you're really unlucky. I'm all for having maps with a tug-of-war-like aspect, but the map has to be designed in a way where it keeps players moving forward and allows for freedom of movement with as much relative ease as possible. What you get with Mercenary Park is instead a tug-of-war scenario that is just who can spam more rockets, explosive, and bullets before we all die, instead of something like a constant, more dynamic and intense back-and-forth tug-of-war that manages to keep the players interested and on their toes until the very end of the game. The last notable class that I can think of whose gameplay is significantly affected by this map is Scout, and in a surprisingly positive way too. Scout absolutely loves the ability to fire his scatter gun up close, and he does benefit from the hallways because it limits your opponent's options for dodging your scatter shots, and you can be more consistent when landing stuns using the Sandman's Ball. Oh, and if you happen to run Mad Milk on this map, you're quite likely to hit multiple people at once due to its area of effect properties, thus giving your team a little bit of extra healing. With all that covered, I think it's time for my final thoughts on this map, and maybe throw out a few suggestions on what Valve could have done to make this map just a tad bit better. Mercenary Park was and still is a map that has had its fair share of issues, but I do see what Valve was trying to do with the map in particular, taking both elements from CP5 Gorge with the outdoor section, and from CP Junction with the more indoors, close quarter section of the map. What I think Valve could have done with this map to make it just a bit better is just expand things a little bit more, so that way all classes can find spots to be useful in instead of just a few classes. Maybe even make a perch or two for sniper while you're at it. But those are just one dude's thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you all think down in the comments below. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. See you next time!